today's meeting.
Sure, sure. I'll just give them an overview of everything. Is that's probably the best way to go, huh? It's just give them an overview of what we're doing.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Hey, Lori, I'm here. I can
You
hear
are.
everybody, but I'm just not, I don't want to keep toggling back and forth until I actually park.
Okay, very
All
good.
right. All right.
Uh-huh.
Thanks.
Kelvin, Jerry, do you want to give a quick overview of the negotiations starting with October 24 or just go
Yeah,
into
we
this?
yeah, we can. That's when we actually probably started officially before that, but that's when October of 2024 is when I actually presented a some type of a formal document to Felipe to get this process started.
Okay. And then we went back and forth, and Laura, you took it
Yep.
from there. So,
Yep.
I did. Yes. Should we wait 3 more minutes? Is the
yeah.
majority of the people on, Chandler?
Yeah, we'll wait a few more minutes.
Okay. Okay, that's a good idea then. Does the board usually meet online or do they meet over at the library?
Typically, a majority are in person.
Yeah.
But I think this one was called as a Zoom meeting. So,
And I'm not seeing Dr. Rogers yet, so I'll uh, give it some time to allow him to join us.
Is Dr. Rogers the chairman of the board?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Yeah, he should call the meeting to order.
Chandler, was this meeting posted?
Yes, it was. It was posted Friday.
Okay. So he'll have to go through the whole process of calling for public comment.
Yes. We haven't received any though.
Okay.
All right. Good day, everyone.
There he is.
All right. Chandler, you want to get us started with roll call?
Yes, sir. All right. Chair Rogers,
Present.
Vice Chair Turner Whiteley,
Present.
Secretary Foyt, Treasurer Dudkowski,
Present.
Treasurer Jones. Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Jones. Trustee Sanchez,
Here.
Trustee Williams Jr.,
Here.
Trustee Fiedler, and Trustee Profit.
Trustee Profit present.
Right, Chair, a quorum is present.
Thank you, Chandler. We'll have everyone stand if you're able to, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Nation
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. All right, we will move to public comment. Chandler, do we have anyone sign up for public comment?
No, Chair, there are no public comments.
All right, we will move to agenda item 3, board action to accept proposed agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
You got that, Chandler?
Yes, sir, I got it.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we will, the motion carries, so we will go to agenda item 4, new business. 4A, under our regular agenda item, we have discussion and possible board action regarding approval of the Library Foundation contract with us. And as I mentioned, we asked our attorney who's been representing us in these deliberations to come today to present the final draft of the document that we believe both parties' representatives are comfortable with, but we know that we each have to present it to our full board for review and feedback and hopeful approval. I know it's been a long time coming to get to this point, so we are definitely excited. It's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get to this point. So with that said, Councilman Weld, I don't know if it's more appropriate if you wanted to introduce Laurie or not.
I know, I think the board is familiar with her. She's been in front of them previously. She can speak for herself. Thanks, though.
Okay, Lori, well, we will turn it over to you if you're okay with that to, I guess, present us on this topic. And then all the board members, I believe, should have the documents in either email or in the board packet.
Yes. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. I got involved in this project back in 2024. There were some complications with this because the foundation didn't believe it had enough funds, startup money, in order to begin their programs to try to raise money for the district. So one of the things that we did was look at where we were able to get money for the foundation for them to hire their first employee. We looked at two things. We looked at the bookstore money, and as you all know, the bookstore agreement has now ended. And we looked at that money that was now just being directly raised by the district itself and the library itself. And we found that approximately 5% of the money is coming from donated books. So whereas the library has the right under the statute to repurpose the books and change the value of the books to money in order to buy new books or new inventory for the library. The books that were donated, we thought we could allocate those funds to the foundation for their administrative costs. And we estimated that over the years, it's been about 5%. So that was one of the first amounts that we were able to identify that we could use for startup administrative overhead for the foundation. The next thing we looked at was the endowment agreement. The endowment agreement, I can share my screen with you guys if you want to see this endowment agreement. We're really just looking at clause 4 under distributions. Just one second, I forgot to share. This one. There we go. Under the distribution, it is under this provision that we're looking at the interest that is thrown off by the endowment. And we can't use the principal of it, but we can distribute income from the endowment fund. And we would go to the foundation and ask the foundation to give us a distribution on that interest. And then we can allocate that to the foundation for its purposes of administrative costs. So in the agreement with the foundation, we are allocating the interest, which is approximately $189,000, to the foundation for its first year of startup expenses. We did not agree to use this money of startup expenses every year. However, we did agree to look at the accomplishments of the foundation in year 2 to see if, in the best interest of the district, more money is given to the foundation to help with its overhead. But there's no amount that's been agreed to, just whether they needed it or not. So this agreement is a 5-year agreement, and it is can be extended with 2 successive 3-year terms. It's also open-ended so that either party can give a 90-day notice to terminate the agreement. If by chance we want to terminate it for cause, we are subject to a notice provision and the right to cure. So the notice provision is 30 days, and the right to cure is within that 30 days, unless whatever it is they need to occur would take longer than that 30 days, as long as the steps have already been started to try to cure whatever the deficiency is. So those are the ways that we can terminate this agreement and have it not go for the full 5 years or for the extensions after that. So it's a possibility of 11 years. It can be modified in writing by both parties. So it's fairly flexible with our ability to terminate and our ability to modify if some of the thresholds are not being made. Now I'm going to change documents here to the other document. Excuse me for 1 minute. All right. This memorandum of understanding is the agreement that we've entered into with the foundation. The first part, recitals are always in Nevada considered to be facts that both parties have relied upon in order to carry out this agreement. And it really sets forth the issues where the district cannot, there are some grants and donations that it cannot get directly, that has to go through a 501c3. This sets forth that the foundation is a 501c3 that has been formed for the sole purpose of developing funds for the district. Then when we get to the agreement, this also acknowledges Exhibit B or Exhibit A, which is the bookstore agreements that are now no longer in effect, just in case there's a question about the money that was being raised by the bookstore sales. We attached this as an exhibit, and in case there's a question as to whether it was continuing or not, we attached it to show that it does no longer continue. We've also attached the endowment management agreement that I just showed you, that has the provision in there about the interest from the endowment and how it can be used by the district by notifying the foundation that it wants to take some of that interest out of the endowment. Then we start with just the governance of the 2 entities. And we go to the fundraising relationship. This is where it says that the foundation will be raising money only for things that the district can't do itself directly. The statute allows the district now to sell the books directly and use the money from the book sales, but it doesn't allow the district to, or the library to fundraise. So the fundraising that has to be done through the foundation will be that the library identifies will be sent to the foundation, and vice versa. Anything that the foundation sees that the library could take directly on its own, they will refer it to the library. So the objectives of the foundation are to work closely with the district because they need to know what the district's goals and objectives are, what programs they're trying to fund. And it also provides that they're going to use efforts to minimize the administrative overhead expenses. And this has been one of the primary issues for the district, is to make sure that the district doesn't provide money to start up their overhead or provide some of those bookstore sales money for their overhead and then not have money raised by the foundation to not only pay that overhead, but also to have additional money to give to the district. So when we get down to the bottom of the responsibilities of the foundation, this starts with F under number 4. And the first year, the foundation is going to raise a minimum of $61,000 to cover its administrative overhead expenses. So basically what this means is they'll have the $189,000 from the endowment for the first year, and they need to raise at least $61,000 to cover what their expenses are. So there isn't really a give requirement in the first year, but by the second year, they'll have to raise a minimum of $400,000. And that's because their administrative overhead expenses will be paid 100% by the money that's raised by the foundation. And we put a limit on this such that their overhead expenses will not exceed 50% of the money that they raise, which means that 200,000 would be going to the district in this year. Year 3, we've diminished the amount that they can use for their overhead expenses down to 35%. Then in year 4, we've diminished that down to 20%. Now, we came up with this number by looking at other nonprofits that are similarly situated, but we also took into account that the library is going to be providing the foundation with an office. So their employee will have an office space. We will also be providing them with the grant writer that the library has. Now, this makes sense for the library because the information that's needed to write a grant requires the library to provide all of that information. So if the foundation were to go get their own grant writer, they would have to go to the library and get someone there to provide all the information they need for their grant. And the grant writer at the library already has all these resources together and is capable of turning out a grant with very little additional time. Also, too, we'll be providing them with a website, and the library will be providing them with the equipment that they need, such as access to a copy machine, access to computers, and the general things that you need in an office. And that's our reasoning for taking this down to shoot for 25% limit on overhead expenses by year 4. There was some fear from the foundation, what happens if we miss these thresholds? So what we agreed to do was meet with them on a regular basis to evaluate how things are progressing. I'll say right now, their problem is they worry that they'll hire an employee that is not performing well, and they will need to replace that employee. And we suggested that they evaluate that employee fairly regularly. The first thing that we're going to require everyone to do is come up with a business plan for the grants that are going to be they're going to go after, and with a budget for any other expenses that they may have. We worked with them to be able to start to transition away from using the employees at the library. They were using the employees for bookkeeping services and to prepare any materials that they needed for their 990 at the end of the year. They will be using a separate company now in order to create these materials. And we talked to them about using a part-time company because it doesn't seem like there's a need to have a full-time bookkeeper. Also, for the next 6 months, the library employees are going to set up their meetings, send out the notices for their meetings in order to handle the administrative things that the library has already been handling. The library will handle their bookkeeping for the next 6 months until they can transition to an outside company. But the goal here is to get them to be able to take care of everything themselves, with the exception of an office, the website, and office materials. Within 6 months after this contract is signed and this agreement begins. We have in G, we have a minimum
Did she freeze on just my end?
No. No.
Oh, did I freeze? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, no worries.
Am I back?
Yes, we hear you
Very
now.
good, very good. It says my internet connection's unstable. Me or my connection? So anyway, we have set that number very low at $150,000 to try to appease them that if they had a bad year, we wouldn't necessarily have to consider that breach of the agreement. Nevertheless, we still have the right to do a 90-day termination, and it doesn't need to be for breach. So we've added in this section here that if the foundation is unable to meet the minimum net annual contributions without prior approval by the district, that the parties will meet to determine corrective actions, which may adjust future overhead, modify the fundraising strategies, or other mutually agreed measures to ensure compliance with the agreed upon minimum. Now, part of this may be that the business plan that we both agreed to included grants that were not available or that they did apply for but did not get. That would be something that the effort was put in, but there was no success. So those are the kinds of things that can be looked at. Possibly the grants can be adjusted so that there are different ones that they're going after. But we'll use both parties' resources to try to figure out how to adjust that business plan. In the event that it still is not curing the problem, then we would have to send them under Section 15 a notice to cure. Like I said, it gives them 30 days, but the ability to cure a fundraising problem would have to be started within that 30 days, even though it may take longer in order to cure that, to raise some funds. Okay. The district, it's important to notice, well, it's not in this provision right here. The district is going to use the foundation solely for its outside fundraising efforts, which does not mean that the district cannot get a donation from another 501c3. We can. We just are agreeing here that we consider them our exclusive fundraising arm for the district and the library. materials sold by the district, the money from that 5% may be given to the foundation for the purpose of developing revenue for the district. Adding in there that the district shall be responsible for all expenses associated with a new market tax credit audit has always been done by the district, but it was something that the foundation wanted to make sure was added in. If that doesn't make sense to anyone, it's kind of just an added sore thumb there, but I don't think that it hurts the district in any fashion to include this sentence there, because that's the way it's always been handled anyway. And then we get to the annual grant review and budget. The first budget, I believe we have set in another provision for July, where they're going to look at and put together their budget for this upcoming year. If they get a grant that does allow for a portion of it to be used as overhead, which most grants do not, but some do, then we've agreed in this provision that it shall not be more than 10% of that grant that's used by the foundation for its overhead expenses. In the foundation staffing, we wanted to talk about this being specifically a development director and not a business director, because I think the business director often sees its duties as managing the foundation's business as opposed to directly going out to fundraise. This board for the foundation is not necessarily a fundraising board. They don't have any requirements on their board members to donate money or to go and meet minimum thresholds of money to donate to the foundation. So they do need to have an employee that does that. We just wanted to make sure that there is just this one employee during the first year while they're using the $189,000 from the endowment, and that additional positions will not be created unless it's financially sound and required for the foundation to meet its obligations under this agreement. Now, the next one is the 6-month transition, where the foundation is going to use the employees from the library to continue as they have been to provide administrative support. But they will be transitioning to use those from outside services after that 6 months or within that 6 months. And then we have the office equipment that's going to be provided by the district. And we have here a fundraising and grant review process. So they're going to conduct their fundraising activities, but they're going to develop an annual fundraising plan that identifies their strategies, events, and goals. So the first one will be done by July 1st, 2026. It is possible that they won't have an employee hired in time. They were waiting to hire the employee until this agreement was signed. But it's easy for both parties to agree that we can push that date back. Now, the just responsibilities to be responsible for the funds and which ones are raised, and separate their accounting for what's been raised and what's being held for the benefit of the district, and the money that's being held to cover their overhead expenses. And then the right to inspect the books. So there's an audit and an inspection right. This is for the district. So we do want to put that on your calendar. I do think that this says that they'll have the right not less than once per calendar year, but you might want to put it on your calendar to follow up with an audit and inspection, maybe twice a year, until you're certain that that employee is doing well, or until the foundation is doing well. The foundation would most likely appreciate that you do more audits and inspections rather than finding out at the end of the year that you weren't happy with the way they handled things. So maybe someone can follow up, maybe your secretary or your treasurer can calendar dates to ask for an audit and an inspection. Then reporting what comes back from the district. When you get money for a particular program, it's important to have something that the foundation can use to go solicit donations that says how great the program is and shows the success that prior money that's been raised by the foundation has been able to be used by the library to accomplish X. And so those materials are going to be important for the district to provide back to the foundation. That can be assigned to obviously employees of the library to make sure that that's done, but maybe somebody should put as a follow-up to make sure that it's being done by the library, and maybe that's just Kelvin that does that to make sure that the materials are being provided to the foundation. That could also be grounds for breach or grounds for them to claim that their breach was caused by the district. So we want to make sure to follow up with those two things, both providing them with their successes from the programs and taking the opportunity to go and do an audit of their books and records. Termination, we already talked about. The 90-day written notice by either party to the other party to terminate. And then 15 is the right to cure within that 30-day notice of default. It's important to send that 30-day notice in writing and confirm that it was accepted and not just stop by their development director's office and have a conversation. Both parties are indemnifying the other, and that is about the only thing that we need to worry about here. They're not going to be able to assign this to anyone else without prior written consent. We don't need to approve new board members, but we do have the right to have 2 representatives meet with them in their meetings. And as Kelvin was saying, we really only needed the right for 1, but this agreement gives us the right for 2. And that's about it. If anybody has any questions, let me know.
This is Elaine Sanchez. I have a question.
Yes.
So if there are 2 trustees that also serve on the board, would they be in the same capacity as Kelvin ex officio? They wouldn't have voting rights, or would they have voting rights?
They're both ex officio. Let's see. Foundation's governance. I think that's going to be in number 2 here.
I thought they were voting, Lori, but I could be wrong.
Oh, are they? Jerry, do you see the provision there that allows their 2 representatives? District's governance. Let me see.
Yeah, I don't believe their current
There they are.
Their current documents have been updated to change from the original representation of 2 members from the district to be fully voting board members.
What does the paperwork say? That's what I want to look at.
Yes, right here at the bottom of page 1, Elaine, it says, whereas the foundation's board of directors consists of 9 directors, 2 members of the foundation's board of directors are appointed by the district board of trustees. So the district's executive director or the executive director's designated representative serves as a member of the foundation board of directors as an ex officio capacity.
Okay, so they serve as ex officio capacity. Okay, that was my question.
Yes, they
Thank
do.
you.
They do.
Thank you.
Wait, I think only the executive director is ex officio.
You know what? I don't have the document right now for the foundation's bylaws.
But I was thinking that the foundation would have to change their bylaws, right?
Right now, do you have one voting member?
No,
I
2.
think 2.
They're both voting. So neither one of
Yes.
them are ex officio.
No,
Okay.
only Kelvin.
Okay.
So, and I think that's just carrying forward what has been the policy.
Okay. So we need to amend that one will have voting capacity and the other will be ex officio.
Nope. I mean, as of the moment, both
Oh,
our
they're good.
board members, our voting board members, with their 2 of their 9.
So is my, I guess my question is, if the foundation changes their bylaws, then that would be an issue. I'm just trying to understand because
Yes, it
you're going
would
to
be
have,
in conflict with this agreement.
okay. I don't
And
understand, but okay.
and what I wanted to point out, this is not the initial agreement, starting with the one in October of 24 that Kelvin submitted to the foundation. We've gone through a number of iterations of this agreement. So this is the final after much negotiation and wordsmithing back and forth between Lori and their councils. And my understanding is their council has agreed to this. Is that correct, Lori?
Yes, there is only one provision in here that we changed after we got their approval. And that was on number 4. I believe it's G. Let me look. Uh, yes. And this is where we put, oh, wait, was it 4E, I think? Yes. This is where we go back, and if they're having trouble meeting their overhead expenses by the percentages that we've set forth for each year, then we agree to go and meet with them to decide whether any endowment interest may be used for the foundation's administrative overhead expenses for the following year after this first year. But we put there such approval must be made in the best interest of the district, and they had that such approval would not be unreasonably withheld. And I think it has to be in the best interest of the district because I think the district has a fiduciary duty to make sure that the endowment interest is used for the best, in the best interest of the district. So that's the one thing that was changed since they've agreed to it.
And the attorney was fine with that? Their attorney was fine with that?
Their attorney is, but she hasn't taken that to the board yet. We were going to wait and see if we got approval from this board. And they understand because a lot of the last changes we made after they came back, we were explaining to them that the district has a duty to the community to make sure that they oversee money that's intended for the library.
And I wanted to, we could
I have a
just
question.
maybe
Oh,
circle back to Trustee Sanchez's initial question, just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Okay.
In terms of the 2 trustees from our board being able to serve
Right here.
on the foundation's board and vote. That hasn't changed.
Okay.
So the language reads the same way where we will have 2 members, they have voting rights. The only one that's ex officio will be the executive director or the executive director's designee. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page that hasn't changed from the past to now and within the new agreement. And so by this being in this agreement, the foundation would not be able to modify their bylaws to change that in their bylaws.
Well, they wouldn't until the next round of contracts, right?
Well, this agreement
Yeah.
is binding. So if they were to intentionally make a change in terms of the board composition that would deny us our 2 positions that we have both organizations signed on this agreement, that would be something that would have to be renegotiated.
Yeah. I'm just asking because I wasn't sure when I read that. So that's why I asked the attorneys.
Chair Rogers, if I may, I just forwarded to Chandler to send to everybody the updated bylaws, and you are absolutely correct. They have 2 board of trustee members, up to 2 that will serve on their board. And yes, they do have full voting rights.
Hmm.
All right.
So
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we're all clear in terms of that there is no change in our representation on their board.
Chairman Rogers, would you like us to include in there that they have voting rights? I'm
I don't
sorry.
think we need to, because it's pretty clear in the last sentence that the only ones who are in ex officio capacity would be uh, the executive director or designee.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question. That's okay.
Yes, go ahead, Trustee
This is
Williams.
Harry. Yes, and I want to go back to the endowment fund, and trying to just financially find out how do we come up with the number of 3,055,000 to be the endowment amount. Um, is it our financial folks thought that would be the appropriate amount, or was it? I mean, what was the reason for that amount, or is that a good
I can
investment?
answer that.
Mhm.
No,
Go ahead,
that is the,
Councilman Welp.
yeah, we had a bequest some years ago from a family that was approximately $3 million. So, and we moved it into the foundation to hold for us. That is the actual amount that's in that endowment right now. So it's not a number that we picked. That is what the investment income or what the principal amount of the endowment actually is. And the 189 is an approximate interest income from that, or investment income from that endowment. So it's a specific amount, not one we found.
Okay, and so that was something that whoever donated that specifically wanted to go to the foundation.
No, the people gave it to us to use in whatever manner we deemed best. And the board at that time felt that putting it into an endowment to generate interest income was the best use of it for that time. I don't believe, I'd have to go back and check, but I don't believe there are specific restrictions on that money except as set by us. And we decided to start an endowment with it and put the money in. So
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with the foundation, except they're holding it for us, and they can't use any of the income by its terms.
Okay, perfect. I just
I,
wanted to know.
I, I just want to say something to that effect because I remember when that happened, and it was my understanding that Clark County could not accept those funds because Clark County is a government, and because it was bequeathed to the library district, they decided to have a foundation so that funds could be held. That's what I recall from those conversations. Now, I don't know if the laws have changed since then, but I believe that's what occurred.
Okay,
Yes. Normally
appreciate
they
that.
will have an outside board that would make the decision on how those funds are used. And the library chose to have it be handled by the foundation.
Okay, and so the follow-up question is also um, the investment portion of that. I'm sure is being invested. It's being invested as presently. Does it continue to stay where it is, or now they can make changes and invest it any way the foundation sees fit to,
Mm,
or will they?
We
mm,
we do not
I-
have that actually, Harry. What we have is a requirement that if the district wants it to be invested in other ways, they would have to do it according to what the district asks. There's a question there, investment right above that in number 3 up there. And a delegation of investment authority or selection of investment managers or brokers shall be subject to the prior approval of the library district.
I
So they
believe
can
it's
give written notice to the foundation and direct the foundation to terminate any investment manager or broker and retain a successor investment manager or broker chosen by the library district.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think it's currently being invested in the same manner as the rest of our investments. So At the moment, I believe it's being directed through Floresto's office. I could be wrong on that. And Elaine, to follow up on what you said, when we originally got that bequest, it went to our gift fund, which we were allowed to have. And then when there was a foundation, it was transferred to that for ease.
Mhm.
Yes, that's correct. But what I'm saying is that I remember the conversations were if the library district were to keep it, we would have to give that money back to the community, give it back in some way. And so I know that's why they created a foundation or something to that effect.
Well, it is in the gift fund. We were allowed to put funds received in a gift fund and use it out of that.
Yeah.
We just decided to do it this way, or the prior boards did.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to ask that question. I just wanted to make sure I understood the
No
process.
worries, Trustee Williams. Any other questions of Lori and her overview of the agreement?
I have a question. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. I know it's a lot of
My
work.
pleasure.
My question is, if we find them and breach,
Mhm.
Trustee Sanchez, we
what we
may
do
have
with,
lost you. Or were you just pausing?
hello?
We
Hello?
we can hear you now.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Okay, very good. I was just asking, let's say that something does happen, and something goes wrong. My question is how does that affect us with the new market tax credits?
Jerry, can you answer that? Do you know if the new market
Yeah.
tax credits already been provided to the district?
Most of the paper, as I understand it, and I asked this of Floresto some time ago, that if for some reason we couldn't reach agreement with the foundation, how were we able to still go forward? And he checked with New Market Tax Credit Council, and they said yes, there are alternative means to go forward. So it's my understanding that we would be all right, but hopefully, I mean, to reiterate, they've approved this with the exception of about 5 words. They sent it to us as an approved document. So we're
Yeah.
assuming this is done if you folks approve it.
Yeah, no, and I'm just asking these questions because I just want to know what that would mean for us. Do we have to give that money back? Would we have, would the government say, oh, you're going to have to pay a fee? That's what I'm just asking, like, how does this work in its entirety? That's why, I mean, now's the time to ask, right?
My understanding is we would just go to any other nonprofit that would work with us and they could take over.
Yeah.
And that is my understanding as
Okay.
well.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe, Kelvin,
Okay.
you
Yeah,
had said
I
that
just want to make sure I understand everything.
Jerry and Chair Rogers are correct.
Okay, very good. Kelvin, I also remember you telling me in the new market tax credits, it didn't allow for any money for administrative costs. Was that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So to answer your question, Ms. Sanchez, the foundation can't use that money.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
You're
yeah,
welcome.
I'll just leave the mic open to see if there are any further questions.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Trustee Dukowski.
Yes, on page 5 of the responsibilities of the district, number 5,
Mhm.
number F is kind of surprising to me. I guess need some clarification. The district shall create an environment that encourages the appropriate independence of the foundation, consistent with its standing and obligations as a nonprofit organization.
Yes, and that's something that they wanted to include in there. I think what they're trying to say here is that you can't commingle the funds of the district and the foundation, or money that is to be allocated to the district. And so they're going to have the appropriate independence of the foundation. as a nonprofit organization would have to be, rather than commingling funds. And we have another part in this where they're required to keep the funds in their accounting in separate accounts.
Okay, well, it just didn't really jump out to me as you were talking about funds here. Okay, gotcha. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
I actually agree with Treasurer Dukowski. That was the thing that jumped out at me is I don't understand what our obligations are under that, and that makes me very nervous.
Yeah, you're right. The district, and I think what they were saying is there are people on the board that felt like the district was controlling everything they were doing and telling them what to do. When I worked with their attorney, we were, very clear about why we need to do that. First of all, we need to tell them what we need the money for them to go out and raise it. Second, we need to keep an eye on the money that we provide to them to make sure it's being used responsibly for their overhead expenses, including if we don't give them any endowment money, we're still giving them 5% of the bookstore money. So that's why we needed to keep a close eye on what they're doing. Now, that being said, the district is not allowed to do fundraising. And that's very clear in the statute. It cannot do its own fundraising. So we need to make sure. So we agreed to this provision because it behooves us to keep them separate as a nonprofit for fundraising purposes so the district doesn't violate the statute that restricts them from doing any fundraising. And so that's the one thing on the district that we've got to keep just with the foundation. The other side of it, we already have 2 board members on the foundation that have the right to provide input. So it does tend to overlap in that way, Trustee Whiteley. But
Trustees, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you, Kelvin.
Uh-huh.
Well, now we cannot. But I think just the intent of that statement is just to make sure that it's understood that it's 2 distinct entities and that we, throughout the document where we explain, what our responsibilities are, what their responsibilities are, it just sort of operationalizes through those other provisions in the document in terms of they are separate, we're separate, and we will have the proper protocols in place for how we interact with one another in executing our responsibilities.
Is there a way we can get clarification on that? I just feel like creating an environment that encourages appropriate independence is super gray area
Can we
and can be
use,
argued a million different ways.
excuse me,
Yes.
I was wondering if we could use the word accounting, because what you were talking about was accounting funds and that the funds cannot commingle. And so if you just change the word from environment to an accounting that encourages appropriate independence of the foundation, if that's what they mean.
Yes, it also has to include the activities so that the district doesn't engage in any fundraising activities.
But I thought that was somewhere else.
It is. I'm just saying that if we just put accounting here, then it might not also show the fundraising activities.
I mean, but by statute, we can't fundraise, is
Right.
what I heard you say.
Right.
So why is that
Correct.
even need to be in this?
Lori, what if we just rewrite it to say the district acknowledges the independence of the foundation consistent with its standing and obligations as a nonprofit?
Okay, very good.
I like that.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Dukowski and Trustee Whiteley, does that put you at ease?
It's better.
All right, well, we'll take that. So
Okay.
are there
Chair
any other board members have questions?
Yes, Chair Rogers.
Yes,
Can you hear me, Chair?
Trustee Williams.
Right above it, the district shall recognize the foundation support in its public communication materials and programming. Is that just on items that they are assisting us with, or everything, all publications, they have a logo, they have something that's going to be on everything that we do as the district?
I'm sorry, which provision were you referring
It's
to?
E. It's right
E,
above it. It's
E.
E. So
Okay.
I don't know if we already have their logo on everything that goes out already, or are we just mentioning just things that they support or they are working on with the district?
Yeah, I think this was because they wanted, when they did something, like they paid for a programming, they wanted people to know that the foundation raised the money for it or provided the resources.
Yeah,
And
but I'm just saying, just
and we
says
do that now.
we do that now. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure it's not on every publication, everything that is going out. So just recognize the foundation support on their items of what they support, not everything.
Um, let's see, do we want to say, so rather just generally, not generally support, but the specific support?
Well, I don't know. That's why I was asking the question, because I don't know if they're expecting newsletters with their logo somewhere in the corner or flyers with their logo. I mean, that's why I was trying to figure out if it's just their support or their programs that they provided funding for.
That's a good question. I will follow up on E.
Calvin, you're unmuted if you were trying to speak.
Do you believe that we could say the district shall recognize the foundation's specific support or program support?
Can it be a best efforts? I don't want it to suggest that every single piece of collateral that goes out has to have some piece of recognition. That just feels like a lot of work for the BAM team.
What about
Here's the one thing I'm going to say, just because I was on the foundation board. Typically, that was an agreement that the foundation and the board, if they worked collectively together, they would put their logo on, and that would help foundations go and say, hey, look, this is what the foundation did. You could support this program or that program. So
Right.
to
But no,
me,
no,
I don't
Yeah.
want,
I
to
have
me,
no
I
problem
don't,
with that, Elaine.
that's what it was for. I don't know if they're trying to change that, but that's usually how it's done. And
Yeah,
I've never seen, even as a board member of this board, I've never seen where the foundation logo's everywhere. I've never seen that.
yeah, I no,
Lori?
and I 100% agree with that, board member Sanchez. But just the way it's seems like it's written, it just seems as if it could be put on anything and everything that we have. So I just clarification, that's all. But I 100% agree exactly what you're mentioning. I just thought that would be the purpose of what the foundation is looking for. It just doesn't seem like that's the way it's written.
Yeah,
How
I
about
agree.
if
I
we
agree with
say
you. I would rather have something where if they are involved, then yes, they should, they that's their collateral. That's a way for them to make more money. But I understand where
Lori,
the concern is.
Yeah, I'm
how
thinking
about
two
if we
things
say
here.
the
Mhm. Go ahead.
can I have an idea.
Yeah,
If we
yeah.
say the district shall recognize the foundation's support as appropriate in its public communications materials and programming.
Yes.
Now, it's not as specific, but it's certainly, I think, is the intent.
And I'm
Yes.
fine with I'm fine with that.
What if you used where it applies? So materials, communication materials in a programming where it applies. That they have done their support.
Oh, yeah, that's better than mine.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that better.
Do you want to say where applicable or just where it applies?
It's where applicable.
Applicable.
Don't we have any English teachers on the board?
Applicable is probably the better word.
Okay.
That's from the UNLV guy.
Thank you.
All right. Very good.
All right, thank you for that additional input and questions for that one. Any other suggestions?
Nope, I'm good, Chair Rogers.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Williams. Trustee Sanchez, are you
No,
good?
I think this is good. Yeah, no,
Okay.
this is good. I
Okay,
appreciate it.
Trustee, okay, thank you, Trustee Dukowski. Any additional input?
No, yes, this is tremendous amount of work here. So yes, thank you. I'm
All right.
good.
All right, how about you, Trustee Whiteley?
I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, I'm seeing Trustee Fiedler.
It looks good to me.
Okay, so I would say, and Councilman Weld, I'll ask for your guidance here. So based on those verbal changes to those two sections, I know they're not done in real time at the moment, but are we comfortable as a board that we know those changes will be made and updated, but we can still go ahead and call for the vote?
Yeah, we would need a motion to approve the contract as amended.
Okay, I want to double check. So do we have a trustee that's able to make that motion?
Yes, this is Elaine Sanchez. I move that we move forward with this motion with the applicable changes that the board suggested.
And I second it.
All right. Any unreadiness? All right, let's call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, any opposed? All right, the motion carries. And Trustee Prophet, I apologize. I just had you pop back up on my list and I didn't call you out specifically to see if you had any questions. So I apologize for that.
That's okay, Chairman. I concur.
Okay, with that said, let me go back to the agenda to see what's our next agenda item. All right, we are not moving to executive session, which is always good from my standpoint. So we would go to announcements. Just as a reminder, we do have our Finance and Audit Committee meeting coming up on Monday, April the 6th. And then we have our April board meeting coming up on April the 9th. And that will be at the East Las Vegas Library. And as a reminder, for the Finance Audit Committee, all board members are welcome and encouraged to attend and listen to Floresto's thorough presentation of our financial affairs and be able to answer whatever questions you may have about, how we're planning, what our financial health looks like as we move forward and navigate, the changing external environment that we have to operate in. And then I will see under announcements, are there any other announcements that my fellow trustees have that they want to share? All right, hearing none. Chandler, do we have anyone sign up for public comment?
There is no public comment, Chair.
All right, well, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you again, Lori, for a great job.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes,
Thank you,
a lot of
Lori.
work. It only took, 2 years-ish? So, but we got it
That's
across the
true.
finish line. So now we just hope that their board will approve the document and we'll call it good.
Very good.
And we can start a
Well,
new chapter in our relationship with the foundation and moving forward and raise money to support the important work of the district.
Thank you all for your contributions. And I will get these changes made and get it over there quickly.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, have a great rest of your day and week.
You
Okay,
too.
bye-bye.